non-duality isn't meant to be this claimed thing that it is, some system of knowledge or some doctrine. Even in its beginnings as a school of thought within Hinduism, I'm talking about the concept now, but even the concept, the fact that there is a concept doesn't mean that there has to be a claiming of it. A concept is useful as something to talk about, so without it we wouldn't have the opportunity to even talk about it. But non-duality isn't meant as a school of thought or a way of looking at things, because that would be somebody adopting a way of looking at things, because either I am looking at things that way or I'm not, and then you have all these 10,000 confusions about how to live in non-duality, or practical non-duality, or radical non-duality, or pure non-duality, or whatever. So what it means originally is that there are not two things, so there isn't a second thing to what there is, and all that means is that what we see as interaction, as dual, is relative. So whatever we see as all the contrasts that we see, light and dark, self and other, they're not ultimately real. But the beauty is that the singularity to which there is actually no other shows itself in all these different ways. So it's a play of forms, and the peace of it, which is what everybody's after, obviously, trying to find some kind of enlightenment, which then is a promise of some kind of a peace, is just because this singularity is already there. There isn't a chasm between one thing and another, so there can never be an overcoming of something, or a battle between two opposing forces. If you see that as an absolute, that there is actually opposition, it creates a situation of stress, quite obviously, because there's always some kind of action, there's always some kind of activity, there's a state of alertness because there is some opposing force that needs to be held strong against, or whatever it may be. So there's an activity, and since there is only really this singularity, there is no activity. Then again, if forms are seen to just be complementary aspects or ways that this singularity expresses itself, then yeah, exactly, then you have complementarity, not opposition. And in that complementarity, whatever action there is spontaneous, is harmonious, it just flows. It's not associated with effort, it doesn't require effort. That's the beauty, because the effort that is entailed in an assumption that there is opposition, it's a psychological, a subconscious idea that kind of has like a motor that automatically makes people have a state of activity, a state of holding against some force, whatever that may be, that the effort to become someone, or to have a career, or to get on with people, or to change themselves, become the best versions of themselves, or all this. So unfortunately, non-duality as a subject also gets taken into that context, and used for certain purposes. And that really defeats the object. The only value it has is the joy of talking about it. That's it. Then if someone gets some kind of, wow, that made sense, or some kind of glimpse from it, that's only because that person was ready to have that glimpse. So that could have come in any way. If the computer suddenly shuts off and you can't hear the talk anymore that's so inspiring, then it'll come another way. It really doesn't matter about the particular lecture or the particular words that someone is listening to. So yeah, even the whole scenario of how people sit on elevated platforms to talk to. There are conferences about non-duality, which is just insane, really. Then there are the speakers, the knowledgeable ones up front, and all the dumbasses in the crowd who don't know anything. That's kind of the scenario. That's the setup, and all it functions as is to feed the ego of those sitting at the front. That's all. So it's ludicrous, really. So the effort involved in many people's listening to non-duality, the kind of plan in a way to become enlightened, is a real, it compounds the lack of ease, the discontent. It gives fuel, it literally gives fuel to it, and will help it to grow. So if there's an enjoyment, it's like going to a restaurant and eating something delicious. That joy of that deliciousness is not something that we return to all day long, the next day or in the next weeks. So the same with the glimpse that's had. Trying to hold on to it doesn't make any sense, because it's literally like poking a hole in, like, say there's a big blanket and then a hole gets poked into it, and underneath there is, let's say, water, still water. Then to return to where that hole was made in the blanket, or to try and find that hole again, is nonsense, because the water is there anyway. It's not like in that particular spot there has been the water is particularly nice or sweet or cool or whatever. So it's meant to be enjoyed as much as a nice meal. And the glimpse will do its work by itself, and its work would be the breaking through things which the opening up of this blanket, let's say, things that cover up how things really are, unnecessary weight that we're carrying around, and actually things that further misery in the world. So within this relativity of a relative one and the other, there is the possibility of, there are all possibilities. So one of the possibilities is the possibility of misery, and to point out and to look at, to see the things that cause this misery would seem to me to be something useful, interesting, or to me at least. Everyone will have a different approach and speak in a different way. I wouldn't know how to address anything in any other way, because there's no point to try and describe the water endlessly, because it's never going to be the words are never going to be the water, and the water's there anyway. And so why sit there and talk about how to describe water in more words? It's more what's useful, the usefulness of the words would be to describe that which seems to cover it up. So all the very common sense ways in which we don't enjoy, let's say, in other people, in the day-to-day, arrogance, selfishness, pride, all these things are really the only things that keep us from, it doesn't keep us from, but it creates a fake identity that covers up what's already there, which is peaceful and tranquil and already relaxed.